Should women skip breakfast after menopause? If you've ever searched for weight loss after menopause, you've probably heard that skipping breakfast or intermittent fasting is the key to losing weight. But after coaching hundreds of women through menopause, I've learned the answer isn't a simple yes or no. For some women, intermittent fasting can be a helpful tool, but for others, it may actually make it harder to lose weight and reach their goals. Today, I'm going to explain and help you understand the research, what it's telling us, and who may benefit from fasting and who may not. And the questions I ask every client before I recommend it. First off, what is intermittent fasting? So intermittent fasting isn't a diet. It is simply an eating schedule. It's timing when you are going to eat within a 24-hour period and when you will stop eating. And instead of focusing on what you eat, we're focusing on when you eat. A common fasting window is 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours of fasting, and then you would have the remaining time would be your eating window. Some women love it because it simplifies their day and naturally reduces snacking. Others find that it leaves them underfueled, low on energy, and makes it harder to get through the day with eating enough protein and nutrients. There are some very legitimate reasons why fasting has become so popular. Research suggests that some people reduce calorie intake, improve insulin sensitivity, which we'll get into because that's a biggie, and it can support weight loss. But here's the important part. Most of those benefits come from helping people eat fewer calories overall, not because there's something magical about skipping breakfast. And menopause changes this equation. So why menopause changes things is because after menopause, our priorities shift. We still may want to lose body fat, yes, but we're also trying to preserve muscle, maintain bone density, support our metabolism, and stay strong for decades to come. So that's why I encourage women to think beyond just the number on the scale. We want to lose fat, not muscle. So when does fasting work best? Intermittent fasting may work well if you're consistently meeting your protein needs. You have stable energy throughout the day. You're not getting to dinner overly hungry. So again, your hunger hormones are not so, out of balance. They're not, your hunger hormones, which are leptin and ghrelin, are not disproportionate, right? When you're hungry, ghrelin elevates. When you eat and you're satisfied, leptin comes in. Leptin is the satiety hormone. Ghrelin is the hunger hormone. So we want to see them in balance. A lot of times what happens for women who are struggling with weight loss resistance, meaning their body isn't letting go of weight, we see an imbalance there, right? Ghrelin is through the roof and leptin is suppressed, meaning we don't get that messaging that the body is getting enough. The other thing is, you're strength training and you're recovering well, right? We want to see this. If you're intermittent fasting, we want to see that, your timing of fuel is supporting your workouts. Also, intermittent fasting works well if it feels sustainable and not restrictive, right? If you're white knuckling it and I'm really hungry, I've got to eat, and I'm hydrating, because that's important, right? When you're intermittent fasting, you've got to stay hydrated, because sometimes hydration can trick us into thinking I need calories versus I need hydration. And for some women, a 12 to 14 hour overnight fast fits really well into their lifestyle. And it can be really an effective option. No more than that. And then let's talk about when it might not be a good choice to intermittent fast. And if you are struggling to eat enough protein, then within a window of eating, you may need a longer eating window so that you get the nutrients in that you need. If you're strength training first thing in the morning and staying underfueled for hours afterwards, that isn't a great idea because, again, we have to make sure that we are stimulating muscle protein synthesis, right? We've talked about this. So we want to make sure the muscle is getting fueled. Otherwise, we are at a risk for losing muscle, right? So if you're strength training, you want to make sure you're replenishing those protein stores so the muscle then can get what it needs to stay intact. Otherwise, we're at risk for losing muscle. If your energy is consistently low, you're in a constant state of fatigue, or, just you constantly need to maybe daily take naps, your mood is maybe a little low, this could be a reason you don't want to restrict the time you're eating. You want to make sure you're getting consistent energy in, consistent energy out. If you're losing muscle along with weight, that is another sign this may not work for you. And if you're really hungry by afternoon or evening and you overeat later in the day, this is a sign that this probably isn't the best tack to take. This isn't the best, modality for you for weight loss. Because ultimately, when we wait to eat and then we overeat, our body is, in a way, slowing things down because food hasn't come yet, right? If we're waiting for food, your metabolism is going to sometimes slow down so that it can go into that fight or flight, meaning is food coming? It's kind of in that stress state. If we're in a stress state and then we eat, meaning, okay, so a stress state would look like I'm starving, I haven't eaten, I'm low on energy, I'm fatigued, I haven't been sleeping. Like, that is not somewhere that we want to get to and then eat a large meal. Because most likely at that point, we are not metabolically flexible if these are the things we're experiencing. When we're not metabolically flexible, and that means really the body's ability to switch from burning carbohydrates to burning fat. If we are in that state, if we are metabolically inflexible and we are starving ourselves and then eating, your body, unfortunately, will take what you're eating and store it as fat because the body is first off in survival mode. We are here to survive, first and foremost. And if we are in a stress state and then we're restricting nutrients, our body's going to take in that fuel and be like, I got to store it because I don't know when the next meal's coming. So that erraticness of our eating can really backfire as far as intermittent fasting goes. So that's an important thing to acknowledge. If you're not feeling all these, the positive things that I've mentioned around intermittent fasting, if it's not a natural flow of feeling good and nourishment and feel stable energy while you're fasting, that's really important. So these are important signs just to think about as you consider whether or not, skipping breakfast as a woman in menopause is going to work for you or not. And then we get to what are we eating, right? Because this is an important thing, right? One of the most challenging things that, I see that women do is they compress all their food into a short eating window and then they're not getting enough protein. So the problem isn't necessarily the fasting window itself. It's that they simply don't have enough opportunities to eat enough protein. So if our goal is, let's say, to get 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal, if you're doing a shorter fasting window, maybe only getting 2 meals a day, we've got to bump up how much protein you're eating in those meals. I advise, if you are doing a fasting window and you are metabolically flexible, I advise more of a higher protein meal, medium, snack protein meal, maybe another higher protein meal. And together that can equal the amount of protein your body needs. But restricting, or, not getting enough protein within your eating window is really going to be detrimental to your long-term health and your weight loss goals. Because after menopause, our muscles become less responsive to protein alone. So that means getting enough high quality protein throughout the day and pairing it with strength training, right? So in other words, what I'm saying here again is that protein is important and we need to combine it with strength training, right? Remember, one or the other, those two have to work together. Protein, strength training. This is a key ingredient to preserving muscle as we age, which again, why are we doing that? Again, so that we don't become frail, lose bone, so that we become more prone to falling, breaking a bone, which will set us back, right? And in the long run, over time, as we get on in age, literally, it is a high risk for death. We want to stay active. We want to have energy. We want to live a strong, healthy life. We have to preserve muscle. How do I decide with my clients, like who's going to fast, who's not? Here's the big thing that I look at when I'm coaching a client. We look at what you're eating first, when you're eating second, why you're eating. That's another big root cause of overeating and weight gain. Why? And as women growing up in this world and all the issues around weight, body image, we're all in it, right? I'm not going to sit here and say I'm not affected by it. I certainly, we all are, which is why so many women are going on these GLP-1 drugs, because it's all about a number on the scale and getting skinny. If only we could rewind the tapes and speak to the goal being fit, strong, healthy, energy, finding joy, not judging our bodies on a number. Again, there is this and, right? Because we know that losing a certain amount of weight and body fat that is unhealthy is important for long-term health. And preserving muscle is just as important. And so bringing those two things together and really getting away from this skinny that we've been sold. And so the goal isn't skinny. It is healthy and fit. And at this stage in life, to be strong, feel good, and be able to experience life for years to come. So how do I decide with my clients? So that's number one. So I talked about what to eat, when to eat, why to eat. Oh, the why is big. How we're eating. And so many women today we're rushing through everything, right? We're going from thing to thing to thing to thing, and we don't take the time to really nourish our bodies. Today we're talking about food, nourishing with food. And the best way to do that is in a quiet, distraction-free space where we can really take in the nourishment, assimilate our food, meaning if we're rushing through, we're probably not chewing our food enough. We're probably not allowing our digestive tract to really work well, right? So later on, we might experience gas and bloating and these digestive discomforts, because we also know in menopause, gut motility, meaning how food moves through our body, slows down. And just a caveat there for women on GLP-1 medications, that further slows down gastric emptying. So food is going to sit in your intestines for a longer period of time. We don't want that, right? We want food to move very well through our body and eliminate, right? Creating that steady flow of energy in, energy out. Otherwise, it can cause some real problems digestive wise. And that can affect us long term for sure. If bacteria is sitting in our gut, it can permeate the intestine, go beyond the intestines, and that can create some serious discomfort and other issues long term. So, not that I want to get into that today, but just to be aware of the how we're eating. So I said, what, when, why is really important, how, and where. Where are you eating? This is another one. Are you eating in your car? Are you eating standing up? I do this a lot, and I catch myself and I'll sit down. But a lot of us just, we're hungry, or we've waited, or we've gone from one thing to the next, or we're in between meetings. Or are you at your desk and not taking a break? Are you working through your lunch? A lot of women I work with will actually put it on their calendar. Take time to eat your food. We need our bodies to recognize the nourishment we're putting in and really enjoy it, because we are meant to enjoy food. And so that's really important. That's where I start, is the big picture there. What, when, why, where, and how. So with that, when a client asks me, should I skip breakfast? I'm not going to start with the clock. I will look at things like, what's your fasting glucose in the morning? What's your HbA1c? In blood work, we want to know, what are your markers? Are you willing to put on a continuous glucose monitor? I love to do this with clients because it gives us real-time responses to things like what you're eating, when you're eating, right? All the things. And then exercise, how you're responding to stress throughout the day. These can be really helpful metrics to deciding your fasting window and what's going to work best for you. And a lot of times what can happen is, by working with a client in this way, I can help them see which foods might trigger a high glucose response, and then we'll move things around. We'll see things kind of shift back into a better pattern regarding blood glucose. And then we can maybe move into some fasting, move in and out. So it isn't a one size fits all. It is so individual based on your life. And that's why it really takes that individual setting to figure out, okay, yes, this is a good idea, or no, let's start here and work more on what you're eating. And then maybe timing between meals, right? That's a form of intermittent fasting. Eat, take a break, eat again. A lot of times that's where I start with women. And so again, what else would we take into account to decide if you're gonna, be someone who is gonna benefit from skipping breakfast or intermittent fasting after menopause? Are you strength training? Again, going back to, are you getting enough protein? How is your energy throughout the day? Are you recovering well? And that would show up in sleep. Another metric I like to be on top of, like, how is your sleep? And then not just how long are you in bed and then waking up, but what's the quality of your sleep? What is your HRV, your heart rate variability? How are you recovering? And really, I think it's so important to look at blood sugar. Back to that. What does your blood sugar look like? Because that tells us so much about your metabolic flexibility and where you are at. And to me, that is a huge tool with or without using the GLP-1 medications. This is a marker that you don't need a GLP-1 medication to figure out how to regulate your blood glucose. And this is where real weight loss, fat loss especially, we can target that more using that glucose monitor and coaching, and work with your meal intake, what you're eating, right? The when you're eating, and working in those what, when, how, why, and where are key components to losing fat. And it all can come down to just really moving a few markers around as far as your day goes. It doesn't have to be a big overhaul. It's being specific about those things, right? And so it's important, like, is this approach, whichever it is, fasting, skipping breakfast, or maybe putting space in between meals, is it helping you build the healthy, strong body you want? Or is it simply helping you eat less? Like that, we have to keep the bigger picture. What are we trying to do here? What's the goal? And those answers are what guide my recommendations far more than the number of hours you're fasting or not fasting. Personally, what do I do? And mine varies, actually. My eating window varies. If I am going to go into a harder workout, right? Maybe a VO2 max session on a bike, or a strength training and then cardio. Like I like to do that sometimes where I'm, and this is my job. So I know this isn't, not everybody can do this or has the time, but I'll do maybe like today I'm going to do upper body, a little bit of lower body, and then go into a run. So I want to make sure that I'm fueled for that workout. I want to make sure I've gotten some protein and maybe a little bit of simple carbs in. So what I will do is I will do a protein smoothie. Small, like half of one, not a lot, but enough to give me the fuel, right? And stay with me here. So the energy to fuel my workout, right? And keep glucose steady, right? I'm not going to spike way up, so that I can stay energized. And then once I've gotten through all the carbohydrate, let's say, right, my body will then switch over to burning fat for fuel, because I have worked at becoming metabolically flexible. And so what does my fasting window look like? I'll eat maybe at 10 a.m. I'll do another meal. I will wait until about 2:30 and then have something small at like 4:30. I usually finish eating by 5. That works for me. Is that what I do every day? No. Sometimes my eating window is longer and sometimes it's shorter. So it just depends. But again, I work with myself like I would a client. Like, where's my energy? How's my blood sugar? How's my sleep? How am I feeling? Do I need more recovery? Do I need more protein? Like asking these questions of myself, just like I would a client. But for me, it's, supporting my metabolism, preserving muscle, and really feeling my best. That's my goal today, right? I'm not racing. I'm not here to break any records or get to some small number on the scale. I mean, I look at being a healthy weight and staying there and being cognizant of working with my body. Because in the past, honestly, for me, there was a time when I worked against my body. I was in a constant fight. The fight was working out more, eating less to be smaller, because I was struggling, like you might be. I was really struggling. And I go there, like I will go through waves, and now because I have a system, I understand my body and how it works, how to kind of come back. And I think that's the key, is that we all need to just find what works for us. And it's not that we're not gonna maybe go off the rails sometimes, but the key is knowing how to come back and not going off and then having that huge fluctuation of gaining weight and then having to lose it again and then But finding that regularity, that kind of space where we don't have to go in and out of this. We can just work with our body where it is and understand how it works, right? I think that's a big thing for me, is teaching you how your body is responding at this stage in life and how we work with it. So should women skip breakfast after menopause? Again, it's obviously a much bigger conversation than just that. The bummer is it isn't a yes or no. It's of course it depends, but hopefully I've given you some criteria today to use, to work within, to help you, because you are unique. Your body is unique. There is no one size fits all of any of this. I do believe having someone to talk to work through, to really help you in conversation, with support, with accountability, with that give and take. It's having someone on the other side, a real person. AI is out there, I know, but there isn't a fluid conversation, of someone who really has worked with real people in real time. So I encourage you to get that support if you're struggling here. And it isn't a forever thing. A lot of women I work with, most women, we can work within a 3-month, 12-week time frame and get you from where you are to finding your space, your structure of healthy living that works for you. All you need is a little bit of willingness. That's it. And then just show up. And I see women transform their lives day after day. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty amazing. And back to the intermittent fasting, I think intermittent fasting can be a very useful tool for a lot of women, especially after menopause, right? Because our hormones have settled. We're in that state of, yes, everything has dropped off, but everything is low. We are in a more stable space. But intermittent fasting is certainly not a requirement for losing fat or improving your health. It is just a tool. And there's lots of tools that we need in our toolbox, not just one. And the best nutrition plan is the one that helps you consistently eat enough protein, preserve muscle, support your metabolism, and give you energy to live the life you want and deserve. So if you'd like a simple framework for putting all those pieces together, I've created a free strength stack guide. Again, keep in mind, this is a guide. It isn't your individual plan, but at least it'll give you some tools that I recommend to start putting in place. And it gives you some daily habits to start to check and make sure you're kind of checking the box. And I give these to my clients. A lot of clients, I recommend some of these tools to support their metabolism, help them age well. And so if this is something that would be helpful for you, go ahead and download the link below. And if you found this video helpful, subscribe, because every week we talk about the science and, more importantly, the practical habits that help women thrive after menopause. I hope that you found this helpful. And if you do want some individual coaching or just to set up a discovery call with me, feel free to also go and click the link to book a call with me, and we'll get you started. So again, have a great day, and I hope to talk to you soon.